Okay, so we started recording. So welcome everyone to our July webinar for the Data Space Alliance Ireland. So my name is Ed Curry, and I'm just going to give you a quick introduction to data spaces before we have our guest speaker today. So our guest is talking about the language data space. And before that, I just want to give a very brief bit of context on what data spaces mean and why they're relevant for us. So as part of the European Data Strategy in 2020, the Commission identified the need to be able to support the flow and exchange of data between different actors within Europe. And one of the key things that they put in place to enable that is what's known as common European data spaces. And what we've seen in the previous kind of the next kind of 5 years up until now is the role that data is playing and the importance of data for AI. And the Commission is currently working on the update to the European Data Strategy, which is called the European Data Union, which is entered into consultation at the moment. And really that's all about looking at how can we improve the availability and the sharing of data to basically bolster innovation driven by AI and the need for high quality curated data sets across different industries and domains. You might wonder what a data space is. So a data space provides a framework, not just from a technical point of view, but also from a business, legal, and governance point of view to support the sharing of data within an ecosystem involving multiple parties. And Penny today will talk about how we do that in the area of language resources. The strategy from the Commission is very much about looking at the different sectors that exist and understanding how we can promote and improve the sharing of data between actors within those different sectors. So everything from like health with the European Health Data Space, things like agriculture, finance, tourism, and then today we talk about language. One of the key things here to point out as well is the role of the Data Space Support Center, which is there to enable and to support the creation of these data spaces in addition to the different data space initiatives that have their own CSA or coordinating support actions as well. The DSSC there is designed to kind of support the implementation of the European Data Strategy and in particular the Common European Data Spaces. When we look at the timeline for the rollout of these data spaces, what we can see is that the projects, many of them started in 2023, starting to look at the requirements and the needs of the different sectors that were there, bringing together the stakeholders to understand what kind of enablers and what kind of barriers exist. What we're starting to see now in 2025 is that they're moving from that kind of requirements gathering phase to deployment phases, where we actually see real life deployments of these data spaces. And we've got a great example today with the language data space. And we would expect to see more of these data spaces come on stream over the next 1 to 2 years. Looking at the work that we do in Ireland, and particularly in Insight, we have a long history of working in data spaces going back over a decade. We are participating in the Data Spaces Support Centre with other partners across Europe, and we've worked with a number of different organizations, whether it's standards-based organizations such as the W3C, the Empower Data Governance Spoke from Research Ireland, and then associations like the Big Data Value Association and the AI Data and Robotics Association. So we have a long history of engaging here. And really that was the motivation for us in creating the Data Space Alliance Ireland. It's all about kind of bringing together the different stakeholders, the different communities within Ireland to work at a national level. Very much inspired by other initiatives that are taking place in Finland, in the Netherlands, in Belgium, where they're trying to bring together their local ecosystem. And the goal really is to kind of promote awareness of data spaces, of the strategy, to try to support the onboarding and adoption of the data spaces by Irish public and private sector organizations, facilitate connections to different data spaces, and then kind of provide local support around technical guidance and some best practices as well. Just to promote, next month we will have another seminar, in September we'll have another seminar on the Green Deal data space, and our guest speaker will be Richard Stevens. But without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Rafiq, who will present today's speaker.
Thank you very much, Ed, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to our monthly webinar. So yeah, it's really a great honor to present Penny Labropoulou. Penny, please excuse me if I'm not correctly spelling the last name. Penny is a principal application researcher at the Institute for Language and Speech Processing in Greece, Athens. And her main area of expertise is the technology infrastructure for language processing and metadata modeling, etc. So far, Penny has participated more than 40 different European projects, including the language data space. So she is acting as the deputy project manager of language data space project. And without further delay, I would like to invite Penny to give a presentation on what the essence of the language data space. As we know that the languages are very much important in terms of like building AI applications. So we would learn a lot about the language data space today. So Penny, please, it's your floor now.
Thank you, Rafiq. Thank you, Ed, for inviting me over to this webinar in order to present the language database. Let me share my screen, first of all, the slides. Please let me know if you can see it now.
Yes, we can see
Yes,
it.
perfect. So without any delays, my presentation today is going to be an overview of the language data space, mainly the technical architecture and aspects. This is a collaborative effort. I'm reusing slides from other colleagues as well, but I'm going to stick to my own views and beliefs on this. So the presentation is going to be about the why, how, what of the language data space. Why do we build the language database? Basically, Ed already said it. We believe that data spaces are an essential ingredient for achieving AI, more trustworthy and better AI systems. We all know about language large language models, LLMs. We've seen the unprecedented capabilities and the changes that they have brought over in the landscape. But LLMs are trained on vast amounts of data, textual, but also speech, image, video, multimodal data. And it's multilingualism that makes the use of LLMs, development of LLMs, even harder. Europe's languages, with the notable exception of English, and there are a lot of surveys that show these are vastly under-resourced. This is true both for Irish and modern Greek. Still, there are unprecedented opportunities for the language technology and the GenAI markets, as the figures show. But in order to profit from these opportunities in Europe, what is needed is a concerted effort for the collection of data for all European languages in order to develop LLMs according to our own needs and cultures. And in fact, make a difference with European data and European stakeholders. There are already a number of initiatives, both at the European and national level, both in the public and private sector in many countries all over Europe. The ALT-EDIC, the Alliance for Language Technology, is an EDIC that has been set up by many countries in order to boost language technology, and in fact will leverage on the language data space, will take over the operation of the language database soon after the end of this project. But they face mainly a lot of challenges, the main of which are the availability of HPC facilities, the speed of Europe versus the speed of the big tech players in other continents, mainly US and Asia. And most of all, the most crucial bottleneck by far is the availability of data for all European languages. And this is where we believe that LDS can make a difference, can contribute. Now, we have to make justice to language data sharing until now. Ever since the advent of the data-driven paradigm at the language technology field, we have designed, implemented, and operated various platforms targeting different stakeholders using different architectures, or targeting different sectors in language technology, different types of data. So what's new about data spaces? Why can't we use one of these platforms? And I think the reason is the same one as in the slide, in the first slide. It's the advent of AI and LLMs has made a real difference and a real change in today's landscape in a number of dimensions, not only technologically and scientifically, but also politically and economically. Think of the think of the Data Governance Act, the AI Act. They legislate about datasets and AI models, posing specific requirements. The increasing demand for data, vast data from different sectors, and the need for interoperability between these datasets and the services that are using them. So what we want to do with LDS, and we believe this is something that we can achieve, is to build on existing achievements so that on the one hand, we improve the way we respond to language data. Sorry for that. Going back. Yeah, the language data requirements for multilingual Europe in the AI era, and on the other hand, facilitate the language data economy in Europe. Okay. A few words about the Common European Language Data Space. It's a procurement action by the European Commission. It runs for 3 years, and we're already discussing the extension of the 1 year. It aims to develop and deploy a trustworthy and secure European infrastructure and marketplace for the collection, creation, sharing of and reuse of monolingual, multilingual, and multimodal language data in different communication scenarios across different domains. It is executed, it's implemented by a consortium of 4 partners. DFKI in Germany is coordinating the action. Athena Research Center, that's the organization I work for. Okay, again, sorry, going back, is responsible for the implementation of the technical component and the architecture. ELDA is a company with a long tradition in language data sharing, and the Latvian company Tilde. Before diving into the technical overview of LDS, what are the types of data and uses that we're targeting? Because they pose very specific requirements for the building of the language data space. Although there are existing datasets such as web crawls and datasets that were already shared by the platforms that I mentioned in the previous slides, we're mainly looking into new press data from industry and other organizations, ideally as large as possible, high quality data, domain-specific data for multiple languages, raw and processed data that can be used for LLM development. We can find such data from publishing houses, media companies, libraries, call centers, etc., that are already creating and using such data, but for other reasons, for other uses in other business cases. Now they have the chance to increase their revenue by repackaging, repurposing this data and offering them for the development of LLMs. But in order to do this, they need to find, use, an easy to adopt way for doing it. And we believe this is where data spaces and the language data space can help a lot. As we can see from this definition for data spaces, which is taken from the DSSC blueprint. DSSC was already presented by Ed. The main principles upon which data spaces are built and the ones that we want to also serve in LDS are data sovereignty, interoperability, and trust. Especially trust is the principle that we believe will persuade newcomers to share their data. Sharing data is important to give it value. But sharing comes with risks. We believe, though, that if this sharing takes place in a trusted environment among trusted participants, following trusted interoperable workflows, these risks are minimized. And this is what the LDS architecture and design principles try to accommodate, to serve. They aim to provide technological support for complying with the data spaces principles, while at the same time providing naturally technological support for workflows designed for the LDS stakeholders, that is the data providers and consumers, first of all, as well as the operators of the LDS platform, that's the governance board. Last but not least, we aim to facilitate new users with lived knowledge of the data sharing paradigm to become part of the LDS ecosystem and monetize their data. So how is this technically feasible? The main architectural scenario for LDS is that of a decentralized network of organizations, be they data providers or data consumers or both, that want to share their data in full control over them, or consumers that want to get access to this data. The main component that is used for this is the so-called Language Data Space LDS connector. It's an integrated system that aggregates together all provider and consumer functionalities. Once an organization applies to become part of the LDS and gets approved by the governance board, they must deploy the LDS connector on top of their infrastructure, keeping their data where they already are, and register their connector in the central component, the registry of participants and software components that is operated by the LDS governance board. Once this is done, the connector to connectors interactions can now start. Now, and this is where all the transactions between for datasets are made between organizations. Now, although all these transactions are made, as I said, through connectors, we also foresee in the architecture a central component, the LDS catalog, that will be accessible to all through a website. Everyone will be able to see the offers that are shared by the participants, although they will only be able to access them by joining LDS. Now, an organization still has full control, not only over their data sets, but also over their metadata description. So if they want, an organization may opt out of this possibility, either for all or for some of their offers. Two more components are foreseen in this version of the architecture. The vocabulary hub that is responsible for enabling semantic interoperability. This is where we host all information about the metadata model and the data models used in LDS. Vocabulary is used there, and we'll also have mappers to widely popular models. And the LDS monitoring service that will keep track of transactions to be used, made between connectors to be used in case of disputes. Let's zoom into the LDS connector and its functionalities. As we said, this is deployed on top of the infrastructure of its organization. It comes with a user identity and access management system where all individuals affiliated with an organization can be registered and get assigned a user role. Depending on their user role, they will have access to the specific functionalities for each connector. Now, when there's any transaction between connectors, the only information that is shared is that of the organization and the connector name. Nothing about the individuals, no personal data. So this is in compliance with GDPR. The users that have the rights to provide datasets can describe the assets, the datasets that they have, and they can also describe policies, licenses in the simplest term. By combining together assets and policies, they create offers. And it is these offers that are published in the local catalog of an LDS connector. At the consumer side, they can crawl offers from one or more connectors. They can browse through them. And once they spot any offers of their interest, they can request access to them. In EDC terms, or this is called negotiation. It's like a simple handshaking where the consumer asks for an offer from the provider and the provider's connector checks whether this consumer fulfills, satisfies the terms in the policy for the specific offer. If this negotiation is successful, automated, no manual thing up to now, the data transfer can be initiated and the contract is locked. By contract, we mean the recording, we know who the provider is, who the consumer is, what the asset is, the policy, the date of the negotiation and the date of transfer. And these are stored both at the provider and the consumer's connector. How are these implemented? The main standards that we have reused are in these four bullets. The LDS connector builds on and extends the EDC connector and adopts the data space protocol. In addition, we use language DCAT app as the metadata model, which is built on DCAT, and this is used for the description of assets, while ODRL is used for the representation of policies, all in compliance with data space recommendations and standards. And this is what we believe will help us be interoperable with other data space. Now, LDS comes in scheduled releases. Not all functionalities were ready yet. We had a release in January 2025. There's a new one coming in July, actually end of August, due to summer holidays, and another one in January 2026. We have zoomed into the LDS current version in order to see how these operations, the main operation in LDS, are operated. I mean, the application and onboarding, as well as operating the connector as a provider and operating it as a consumer. Let's have a demo for this, for the application of membership.
In order to join the language data space, an organization must apply by filling in an application form with the information that is required to prove its eligibility according to the LDS governance framework. Before submitting the form, the representative must acknowledge and agree to the LDS terms of service as a condition of participation. The information from the form is added to the LDS registry. The LDS Governance Board will assess the application and, if the organization is eligible, approve it. Upon approval, the organization's representative will receive a link to the instructions for downloading and installing the LDS connector. After its installation, the representative must register the connector and its authentication keys. Finally, the connector is ready to be used and communicate with other organizations' connectors as a trusted participant in the LDS ecosystem.
Sorry, I just realized, I don't know, could you hear the sound?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So once the LDS connector is deployed at the organization, the administrator of this organization can register users from this organization, possibly by using the organization's Active Directory, and assign them one or more of the predefined LDS user roles for providers and consumers with simple and advanced rights. So once a user with provider user role logs into the system, they can start describing assets and policies and create offers. Again, a demo for that. Sorry.
As a data provider, you can use the LDS connector to offer your datasets to other participants. For this, you can use the LDS graphical editor, which caters for different types of language data and resources. You must first select a dataset from those stored at your organization's storage location. You can then describe it with a set of mandatory and optional properties conformant with the application profile of a standard metadata model. The editor includes functionalities for typing free text, such as the title, and the description of the contents of the dataset, as well as auto-completing values from a controlled vocabulary, like that of languages, which is an important attribute in the LDS context. Properties related to GDPR are also important for LDS purposes, as they can ensure legal compliance and are, therefore, mandatory. When you have finished and saved the description, you can view its detailed description. The completion of optional properties contributes to easier discovery and usefulness. You can then proceed to create an offer for the dataset. First, you select it from the list of assets, that is, the descriptions of your datasets, and then you select the policy with which you wish to offer it. Click on Publish and the offer will be added to your catalog. If none of the existing licenses fits your purposes, you can create a new one. The Policy Wizard enables you to select and combine together various licensing terms. Some of these terms require customization. For instance, you can add the price for acquiring a dataset, or select a specific country where you wish to restrict the distribution of a dataset. In this way, without any knowledge of ODRL, the standard vocabulary used for the representation of policies in dataspaces, you can easily create new policies. Now you are ready to start sharing your datasets with organizations that are also members of the language data space.
Okay. And finally, on the consumer side, as we said, you can crawl offers, find the ones you want, negotiate, and transfer them, always keeping the contracts. And the final demo for this session.
As a data consumer, you can use the LDS connector of your organization to view the offers of other participants. By selecting one of the other LDS participants, you can browse through their catalog and see all their offers. You can also use one of the pre-selected filters, such as language or keywords, for instance parallel corpus. You can also combine this with a free text query, for instance, health, to refine your search. Browsing through the results, once you identify an offer you would like to acquire, you can view its licensing terms and its detailed description. You can now click on Negotiate to get the data. The request is pushed to the provider's connector. If the policy terms allow it, your request is approved, and you can transfer the actual data at your organization's storage location. Through this central location, all users of your organization can access the datasets.
So, as we said, the first version is out, and we have created an environment that can be used for demo purposes, where we have created 3 connectors, reusing, taking benefit from 2 existing language resource infrastructures that we have, the European Language Grid and the ELRC there. You can test them for creating and consuming datasets, just to see the functionalities, or you can also apply at this URL site, join the language data space, and create your own, deploy your own connector, and test it with your own offers. Now, as I said, that was released version 1.0.0, and very soon we'll have the second version with enhanced features. We've invested a lot of time on user friendliness, creating a more tailored dashboard and all the functionalities of the connector. We're supporting right now the data lifecycle as specified for LDS, and we have an enriched policy wizard with more policy classes that have been approved by the governance board of the language data space. New offers we're also allowing now to provide, consume, and describe models, language models. We have batch import of descriptions, metadata descriptions for expert users. And we think the most prominent features for these versions are the LDS Central Catalog that I spoke of, and a prototype invoicing module that enables the automatic creation and transfer of invoices from provider to consumer, being the first step into the real business of language data trade transaction. Of course, all financial transactions take place outside LDS, and this is just a prototype. If you want to find more information, you can go through this link, or even better, you can have a preview with a similar setup as the one used for version 1. If you join the LDS user group, there's nothing difficult about that. Just go to the official site and you'll find the button for joining us and helping us build the next versions of the LDS platform system. I don't have the time to go through all the details on how the technical components, the architecture, serve data spaces principles. I just want to make some highlights about the trust framework. Only trusted participants assessed by the LDS governance board, currently the European Commission, can join the LDS. Only authenticated, authorized connectors can have transactions between them, and only authenticated users inside an organization have access to all the transactions. Data sovereignty, data remain at one's organization. Providers define their own data policies, and where technically possible, these are enforced before the approval of the data they request or the data transfer. important interoperability with the 4 standards that I mentioned before. Now, to conclude with, I'd like to say a little bit about how we built the language data space, the technical components of the language data space. We took a very pragmatic and step-by-step approach because we need to deliver a product in a specific time schedule. So we decided to reuse existing technologies and components and follow recommendations from DSSC, but also other data space initiatives in order to maximize interoperability. The EDC connector, the data space protocol are the most prominent ones in this principle. There are many emerging or under development technologies and standards. We have not been able to adopt all of them because, as I said, we have specific time constraints. We plan in this gradual step-by-step process, go back and revisit them at later stages. Semantic interoperability, crucial. Yes, we are trying to reuse standards, but these standards are not all served, enabled, supported by the technical components that we use. For instance, EDC does not fully support ODRL. We have to make some compromises, or the models themselves do not have a very strict guidelines on how to adopt and adapt them. We have invested a lot of time on the domain-specific requirements, the language data space requirements. So we have created add-ons on the EDC connector for minor modifications. We have developed an LDS proxy for the major modifications like multilinguality. We plan to have the LDS offers all visible in all EU official languages, and multilinguality was not supported by the EDC. And we have developed components from scratch when the time for making the modification was more than just creating a new component. That's the solution we did, for instance, for the central catalog. We take into account the user requirements. So we have a very user-friendly UI and policy wizard for novice users, but we're trying to create, develop and implement APIs for expert users. Finally, yes, there are recommendations for data spaces. The focus is on data sets, data products, but we find also limitations. For instance, DSP and CAT do not fully cover models and services. And this is something that we're looking into for the next version. So we're checking out solutions from other data space initiatives, and we plan to integrate them all in the overall implementation. As a final note, we try to leverage on what is out there and focus on customizations and additions in order to build the language data space. And with that, I thank you. I'm ready to take questions and discussions. I hope I didn't take more than the time I needed.
No,
Thank you.
Penny, thank you very, very much. It was really a great presentation. Thanks a lot. An excellent demonstration is about language data space. Honestly speaking, I mean, it also was very good for me, although I'm working in data space area since last couple of years. It was really very, very good lesson and very practical. So, Penny, we have a list of questions from the audience. You want me to read them or one by one, or you want to go through? You can go through as well. So if you want me to read them, I can do as well. Just let me know.
Okay, just please go ahead so that I'm not the only one speaking.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so the first question was from Verena Platzgammer. So apologies again if I am misspelling the name. So the question is, you have mentioned that the availability for all European language is a major bottleneck. Can you say a little more about what concrete consequences would be if this was not resolved?
I think that we will not have good enough of great quality LLMs for all languages if we have such an imbalance of data. Just look at how the various ChatGPT, GPT, etc. At first worked in your own language. They have progressively been improved, but again, if you don't put a lot of data in your own language, you will never get a high quality LLM. And this is something that I see also in other countries happening. We have created our own Greek LLM using obviously fine-tuning and training existing LLMs with Greek data. And we're improving it, but we need a lot of data in all languages.
Perfect.
But how different European languages compare in these scenarios. There are, as I said, many surveys. If you search for European language equality, that's another project that I was involved in before. You can see the amount of data that exists for the different languages. And just one final point on that, if we don't provide the LLMs with real data, they use synthetic data. And the synthetic data is not as good quality. Keep that in mind. They were contaminating more and more LLMs with synthetic data.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Penny. So I'll go to the next question. So the next question is from Donovan Jeremy. Can you give us some real examples of companies that have repackaged their language data used for other purpose to then become producers in data space and share that to other companies?
Okay, I think that one has to go into the various data spaces and see how that works. For LLMs, just think of all the media companies, the well-known newspapers, etc., that have already started trading not through data spaces in the US, but on a one-to-one contract with Google and AI Meta and everyone else. We'd like to do that in Europe, not on a, well, anyone can do business on a one to any company. No one prohibits them from that. But we believe that if we do that through a shared trusted framework like data spaces, this will further boost the European data economy. So don't have concrete examples for data spaces right now, but we are getting there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Penny. The next question is anonymous attendee. When will the LDS move beyond beta version?
Okay, now that's the trick. We do beta, we say beta because we need to be sure of what we are doing. I think this is already a very good quality rather than just beta version, but I think, yeah, the January 2026 will definitely be the official one. Also, as I said, there is an extension and there will be another version in the 4th year, but that was one of the 3 first years that were in the original procurement action. Yeah, but January 26, yes, already. This one already has most of the features that are required.
Thank you so much, Penny, once again. So again, like what will happen when LDS after the initial or extended funding? So, I mean, that is related to sustainability, I suppose.
Yes, as I hinted before, the ALTEDIC, that's the Alliance for Language Technology, is an EDIC. It's a European data infrastructure. I don't remember. I think it's consortium, the last word, that is funded by the European Commission. It has the support of multiple countries all over Europe, and that will take over the operation and the governance of the language data space.
Right. So the next question is, in how far is the LDS connector different from connectors used in other data space?
Okay, I don't know all connectors, to be honest. As I said, we have built on the EDC connector. That's not a ready-to-use connector. It's rather a framework that you can use and build on that. I know that there's a Fireware connector, also a framework that you can use. What is different for us is that we have, as I said, customized it to our own language data needs. That means both covering the language DCAT AP metadata model, but also spend a lot of time on the user interface, try to make it as simple as possible, because data sharing is not a simple transaction. It's complex. We're trying to hide technicalities behind a user-friendly interface.
Brilliant, Penny. So the next question is that there was a term that was used in a slide, LDS prosumer. And
Prosumer. It's the combination of
of
provider and consumer. In the language technology, we've seen that most organizations are acting both as providers and consumers rather than just taking one role. And this is the language technology jargon term for that.
That's amazing. So you combine producer and consumer. Okay, again, anonymous attendees, they all are anonymous attendees. So what support infrastructure, that's ticket system, and service level agreements, example uptime, are in place or planned?
They're planned, they're part of the governance framework that I haven't talked about. We already have the LDS terms, general terms and conditions that apply to the testing phase. And by January 2026, we'll have more for that. Ticketing system, okay, yes, we're looking into that.
Brilliant. The next question again from anonymous attendee. Can the user have a glimpse of the data as well as besides the data description while buying it?
It's up to the provider. We do allow for them to provide samples of the data sets and accessible for all sites, but it's up to the provider to decide that. We're going to promote that because we think this is very important for trading, but as I said, it's up to the provider to decide whether they want to do it or not.
Excellent. So again, from anonymous attendee, how many participants does LDS already have?
Okay, I was looking at that because I was preparing a deliverable about that tomorrow. About 40, to be honest. Not all of them are active, but yes, they're getting there. And I'm talking about the LDS participants, not the LDS user group. The LDS user group has many more members.
The last question from Fatima Khalik. Is there an effort towards standardizing ontologies across data space for interoperability among different European languages?
Okay, that's a hot subject both for me and Rafik, because Rafik is working on the DSSC recommendations, the DSSC experts group, together with me and other colleagues on data offerings, data and services offerings. I don't remember exactly the term.
Data service
blocks,
offering
sorry.
and description. Yeah,
because we're
That's
doing that.
all.
Okay. DCAT is the ontology, the vocabulary that everyone recommends, but that's not enough because it's a huge vocabulary. And we're already discussing with Rafik that we need a minimal set of metadata properties that need to be there across for all data spaces. Moreover, there are other ontologies like Gaia-X, the IDSA, although I think the IDSA is more or less neglected at this point, but I think we should also look at them, especially not so much for data sets, but mainly for services. But I agree with you, there's a minimum set of metadata properties that should be there for achieving interoperability. And if not, we should also have alignments between the various ontologies and metadata models. This is something that we should look into, that all data spaces.
Thank you so much, Penny. The last question again, there is one question popped up. Might be off topic, but do you know of the financial data space in your budding financial data space? Any financial data space in the EU?
I know that there's the procurement, the public procurement data space, that's obviously about finance. To be honest, I don't know.
Well, honestly speaking, I have a bit of information on that. So far, if you go and check the common European list of common European data spaces, I don't know who asked this question. Please, if you Google common European data spaces, then you will find a list of data spaces in the 14 categories. And one of them is finance. And finance, I think there is one data space that have been procured by the commission lately, but it's not functional at all. They are in a very preliminary stage. It's like, I mean, it's just, like named that it has been, like it has been initiated by the commission. So that's all so far finance. But hopefully in a year or two, it will, like it will be there. So I don't see any more questions. Just a very, let's say that the quick conclusion from my side. Penny, first of all, it was a great honor to have you here, and I would also like to take a pleasure to say that Dataspace Support Center is a proud of Language Dataspace for one particular reason, that I think this is the first data space in the commission which is fully functional and compliant to what we are producing in Dataspace Support Center guidelines and basically, the technologies that we are recommending for data spaces. And this is why I strongly believe that we as a member of Dataspace Support Center project is similarly proud of what LDS has done. The version that we have seen is fantastic. I mean, it's very much useful. And we wish all the best for Language Dataspace, and we would closely work in future with LDS again. And thanks once again. Thanks everyone who joined today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your excellent questions. And we will be again, like as Professor Edward Curry was saying, that we will join you in September with a new Green Deal data space. Thanks again, Penny. Thank you so much. And until next webinar, see you. Yeah.
Thank you, Rafiq. Thanks to all the participants. That was really a great discussion. Thanks for allowing me to present LDS. All the best for the DSA Alliance.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Yeah, bye. Bye.